Hello, I'm Wraith Pocketwatch, and this is Watch Pocket Gaming, bringing you this exciting delayed coverage of the Giant in the Playground Blood Bowl League. I'm bad at pretending to be a sports commentator. On with the gameplay! Alright, I am still Wraith Pocketwatch, and in keeping with the fine traditions of this gaming channel, I have a cold while recording this. But in a break with tradition, this is my fourth match from Season 2 of the league against Tasroth's Dark Stars. And here also is Tasroth.
Hello all!
So, he wanted to be here while I recorded this. Yep, that's true. It won't allow two teams to play in the same colour.
So we've been seeing more of this season already.
It's very annoying because everyone wants to play in black.
Yeah.
So, and then it switches you from black to... Well, it switches you from being the same colour as your opponents to white. It doesn't allow you to choose. Though because you can change your team colour at any time. So, if you remember, you can just change it before the match, and then change it back afterwards. But yes, Tasroth wanted to be here while I recorded this, so that when I say that he's done things horribly wrong, he can explain why he thought it was a good idea. And he's done it horribly wrong. That's a lie. This formation looks fine enough to me.
I think it's one of... I think I was using quite a bit at this point, and of course this is when I think I have something like one level up on my team at this point, maybe two, and yeah, it's hard to actually tell obviously without looking closely, but I think the one which I know I've got is my Chaos Warrior Gorthar Cruel has block.
One of your Beastmen has sure hands.
Yeah,
I saw because I was
right. Then it'll
mousing around.
Yeah, I did think I might have gotten sure hands by this point as well, but consequently, it's one of the things I know I've found kind of early on in the season is that the downside is with a Chaos team early in their development is, of course, they don't actually have any skills, almost at all. In a roundabout way, though, that's also a plus because any of them can be used for kind of things like ball handling, so...
Yeah. Here, obviously, figuring out how to hit the front line. Because, of course, you chose to kick, which... Like, most teams choose to receive. I usually choose to kick. Tasroth usually chooses to kick. And so usually we get our way, because the opposing team will choose to receive. Except when we play each other, and maybe one or two other teams who also like kicking first. Yeah, also, of course... Oh, yeah, and I actually ran out of time for that formation. Richard Dauntless is supposed to be in the middle of my half, so he can pick up the ball wherever it goes. Good thing for me that Tasroth does not have anyone with the kick skill, so he couldn't just kick it very accurately to like the back right corner of my half where I couldn't reach it. As it is, I'm still a square short. So that's not the worst thing in the world because Chaos can't dodge well enough to run in take it while I'm happy about just standing next to it like that. Ah yes, so Conrad has acquired Mighty Blow, which means at this point I basically am pretty much in the mindset that I want him to hit someone every turn to get maximum use out of it. Particularly given I don't have that many skills on the team. Full stop. This is where one hates being short on skills. It's still weird watching this when I'm used to having at least all the basic skills that I need.
Essentially block on the vampires, for example. Yeah, well, I think from my point of view, it's probably I'm having a sort of similar feeling with...
Yeah, your Chaos Warriors don't have block.
Yeah, it's something I... first skill I gave to all 4 of them. Took me a while, but they all got there.
I can't pick up the ball. It's, as I basically already said, it's not that big a deal. The automatic camera in this game is terrible. I mean, I guess it's supposed to look sort of, cinematic and give you the interesting camera angles, except I kind of feel like it's pretty bad at that because it shifts around so much. Like, how could you ever tell what was going on? And then it's awful for actually playing the game because you want to be able to see where all of your players are. Yeah, positioning being the most important thing.
I think typically it sort of points itself at whichever player is currently selected, but you're right, that's free.
But also, then how do you select a different player if you can't see them?
Yeah.
Okay, so you're forming up this little... Okay, I thought you were just forming a little line in between my players. This makes more sense.
Yeah, and I think obviously I had to dodge to get through there, but I guess I figured...
It was an easy enough dodge.
Yeah. The other thing that I noticed is, of course, I blitzed with... I'm realising I'm pointing at the screen. This is not helpful to anyone who's actually watching the video. But yeah, I blitzed with Gorthar for the same reason I know you've talked about blitzing everyone with Sir Conrad. Because at this point, Gorthar is the one with block.
Yeah.
So if I'm going to only get one blitz, it's going to be with the guy with block.
That's even more of a thing, because it means he's the only one who can really blitz or block reliably.
Yeah.
Whereas in my case, I have other players with block, but I want to maximise the sort of benefit that I get out of having Mighty Blow as well, by trying to get those injuries.
Yeah.
So I'm trying to set up a sort of minefield of tackle zones between you and the ball. I think I'd want to just blitz M4, but of course it might not work, which is why those tackle zones are important.
Yeah. I'm trying to really think why in particular Anfalgler is up there. Well, the answer,
he was conveniently situated,
which is often the reason why I use players
who can get there.
Yeah. Well, it comes back to what I was saying about chaos and the ability.
Yeah, see, Mighty Blow. I don't know if it made a difference. I can't see the chat log.
Yeah.
There's a way to change the opacity, but I didn't know this at the time. And I don't understand why it's not set higher by default.
Main thing is, on most pitches, it's okay.
It
on
still
this
could
one,
be a bit better.
Yeah.
On most pitches, and on this one, it's awful.
Yeah.
No, I think that would have been a KO even if Sir Conrad didn't have Mighty Blow. But
Let me see. Yes, I was thinking a bit about running and full clear up because he probably was just the closest guy, which, you know, again, it comes back to what I was saying about Chaos starting with
they're all
skill.
equally good or bad at doing everything, really.
Pretty close to, certainly.
Yeah, the Chaos Warriors do have more strength, but they have no skills which relate to hitting things to start with.
They also, of course, have the armour.
Yeah, the Beastmen have higher movement, so more mobile.
But it's pretty close either way. And...
Yeah, okay, so what I'm doing here, like, obviously, a lot of players would want to put, like, a very tight cage around their ball carrier. And, like, sometimes that is a very good idea if you just form basically an X with your ball carrier in the middle, then there's no way to get at him or her without doing some fairly improbable dodging. But on the other hand, like, you don't need to have the players right up next to the ball carrier. So what I've done, it's more, I guess, like, screening. Because, like, I mean, against, say, some sort of elf team, this might not work quite as well, because they have the extra agility, they can potentially dodge through a few tackle zones to get into position to hit the ball carrier, at which point he has no one to help him. Whereas with a tight cage, even if they manage to dodge into the tackle zones, the players providing those tackle zones are also assisting defensively on the blitz. But Chaos don't really have that sort of agility. It's not really their playstyle to do that sort of thing. So it seems more reasonable to just screen like this, and thus take a bit more space. Because if I basically retreat all my team to just surround my ball carrier, then that leaves all the space to my opponent, and he can just advance up to, like, right in front of me. Whereas here, I obviously had a bit more space, which allowed me to move around a bit more freely. And, obviously, you want that space because you need to move up the pitch. Yeah, and of course, in comparison now, I'm kind of forming at least the front half of a cage with Gideon Crawl and Martin Morris by Richard Dauntless, but I couldn't move them further up because there are beastmen in the way, so this doesn't apply as much.
I'm remembering something that's about to happen as well.
I'm also actually just noticing here that all four of your Chaos Warriors are on the opposite side of the pitch to the ball,
which
is pretty good for me.
Yes. Agreed. And yeah, it is. Because I remember, obviously, I pinned Matthew Baker onto the sidelines with Gorthard, taking the blitz against him. I put Ulfang next to Gorthar to kind of hopefully stop him dodging out, but of course I could only go one way. And I probably should have put him on the other side, because
now I'm getting in him and sort of Stephen North behind your formation.
Exactly.
Splitting you up.
It would have been more efficient, with hindsight, to put Ulfang the other side, because if you dodge him back into your half, well, it doesn't really affect me so much.
Yeah, well, I mean, like, a relevant point is simply Melkor where he is. If Matthew Baker had to dodge back into my half, then Melkor can now run over and hit Stephen North in the face.
That's true.
Whereas, well, actually, I suppose he can once Glaron moves out of the way. Or equally, he could have just moved into a defensive position either way. But I kind of restricted you a bit by having Matthew Baker there because it meant you had to move those two beastmen out of the way before Melkor could go anywhere without dodging. And of course, just a moment ago, I checked the injuries so far. I haven't suffered any, and there are 2 beastmen knocked out, which obviously is good. Chaos are a fairly strengthy team, whereas vampires are sort of an all-round team. So having a numbers advantage bodes well. Not having block on players is the worst thing.
I'm sort of looking at them now, and I'm thinking, I'm not sure that was the smartest blitz on my part, but...
Well, harassing the ball carrier tends to be a good idea.
Yeah. I suppose if I'd actually knocked over, what was it, Gideon, then...
Yeah, that would have been...
Then I would have...
Pretty good.
Yeah, particularly if I'd broken the armour, then there's no way that... Then you would have had at best a 1 dice block against... Garland, I believe. You could have run extra assists in, but you would have had to run them into there. And I would still have somebody next to the ball carrier, so...
Yeah, whereas obviously here I still had my blitz to use with Sir Conrad and thus break up that little line there. Oh, yeah, I didn't realise Mormagil was back there.
Yeah.
I wasn't paying attention.
If I were to take an educated guess, I'd say Mormagil is probably on 3-star player points at this point. So I'm thinking of scoring a touchdown with him getting another Chaos Warrior with block, but I could be completely wrong. It could be just that I started by using my Chaos Warriors to score touchdowns because I want them to get block.
Yeah, it's not too unreasonable an idea, although when you're already 2 players down, you kind of want your defensive power around.
So arguably it would have been better to keep Chaos Warriors where I can actually kind of try and stop you scoring and get the ball in the first place, and still keep a Beastman heading towards your end zone, because
Beastmen are sort of better suited to it because they have the higher movement and
which I think maybe what I'm trying to do with running Allfang up there
defense because of the lower strength. Of course. Conversely, I now have Matthew Baker in scoring range, so you potentially have to deal with this.
I'm probably aware of
even
that
though
at this point. I can't
Richard Dauntless with the ball is not actually moving forwards very quickly. I think he moved 1 square in that last turn. But, I mean, that can be enough, because... Well, I suppose... Yeah, obviously if he continues just moving 1 square a turn, then that won't work out so well. But I can get other players closer, and if it was like 2 squares a turn, then in 3 turns he will be in scoring range, and then he'll have 1 more turn in which to score. So that's the thing, you don't necessarily have to get that far into your opponent's half to be in scoring range, and obviously once you can score in a single turn, you can go for something a bit riskier because you don't have to worry about defending the ball once you've run it forwards.
Yeah. And just looking at some of this, another classic Chaos play there as well, Drawgluin standing up to blitz, and because it's a blitz and he's a beastman, he gets the bonus from horns.
Yeah.
And
to be fair, that's really not really a classic Chaos play.
that's true. Oh yeah, my
Dead
apothecary
Chaos
going.
Warrior.
Yes. It's funnily enough, I don't want a Chaos Warrior to be dead.
Yeah, it's not really a classic Chaos play. It's just a play that a lot of teams would make.
True.
It's more effective as Chaos because of the horns.
Yeah.
So yeah, of course, it's worth noting Matthew Baker, obviously, at this point, is really not going to score. You know, he's surrounded by 3 Chaos players. Getting him into the end zone with the ball would just be too difficult. But in order to deal with him, all the Chaos players have had to fall back, which gives me more space to move around in and to move forwards into. So now, what I'm doing here, obviously, is I will have been like counting out squares and figuring out not just where Richard Dauntless can get to, but where the players around him can get to screen him off from the people who will otherwise punch him in the face. To figure out a decent cage formation. And it tends to be worth thinking this stuff through in advance also, because sometimes, depending on positions of enemy players, you may have an issue where you have to move players in a certain order because they'll get in each other's way. And yes, and of course I'm doing it all with thralls because they don't have to roll for bloodlust. I can happily leave my vampires where they are because they're still in range to run in and hit people if necessary, which is the main thing that I want them to do. Oh yeah, that's right, so Roderick is missing the game, isn't he? So I only have 3 vampires in this match. I was just wondering where he was. Okay, I did move 1 vampire. And I didn't really need to reroll that. It doesn't really matter. I mean, he's still in scoring range because he has movement of 6. It'll cost him 3 to stand up, and he's 3 squares from the end zone. So if I want him to score, I can just run him straight into the end zone and then pass the ball to him. And yes, of course, I'm now 11v8. Given there are the Chaos players behind trying to be scoring threats, I'm kind of like 11v6 or 7.
Probably technically 7 because Mormagil is more kind of trying to harass you from behind.
Yeah, but he's on the wrong side, really. He would be more useful if he was in front of me. More useful to me, to you, that is.
The other point, of course, is that at this point I don't have any substitutes.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, well, I was just talking about this drive specifically.
Yeah.
And it is an issue because harassing an enemy team from behind can be very effective. But well, it's more effective if you can stop them moving forwards too quickly. Because dividing the enemy team, particularly when they're trying to defend against you, can also be really effective.
Yes.
And that's basically kind of what I've done. So the players behind me aren't doing that much, and they've kind of been left behind because I moved forward at an appreciable pace.
Yeah. I'm remembering one of the other things about this match, of course, is that I am the amount that I managed to get into my treasury before it. It's one of those random.
Yeah, you were like 10k
10k short of having my mind.
Yes.
Yeah. So don't quite have that extra little bit of strength advantage.
Yes, that's something I'll have to deal with in the current season.
That's true. However, I am going to be one Chaos Warrior down. So.
Yes, but it's more strength.
That's true. I'm also remembering what's going to happen in my next turn. I'm pretty sure it's my next turn.
Trying to figure out what I'm about to do here. Because I can move Richard Dauntless up, but I need to mark Gothmog to make sure he doesn't try anything.
Yeah.
And preferably Drogwin and Gawain, who you probably can't see his name because it's getting overlapped by Drogwin.
Yeah, it
but I know where it is.
Yes.
A Rodruin.
He's one of the few players who has a long name.
Yeah. I'm trying to think. All your player names are from Tolkien, aren't they?
At this point, yes. It's the... Yes. Some of the others that I add to the roster later aren't. Because it's the same team names I've used for pretty much every incarnation of this team.
Yeah.
So... Originally, I think the 4 Chaos Warriors and the first 8 Beastmen, all the names came from Tolkien. And then when and then anything came along later, it's more of a mix. I think I used something like a fantasy name generator or something of the sort for some of the others. But the point is, I did that more years ago than I care to remember.
Yeah. And so, of course, it's worth noting, as I was saying, I could have run Richard Dauntless up, but needed to do something about certain players. Or, of course, I could run him up, but not quite so far, and then be able to form up around him. This is the thing, it's kind of what I was saying before. Of course, now he is in range that he can run in a touchdown in a single turn without needing to roll going for it. And that's as far forward as he really needs to be, so long as I can just get the enemy team out of the way. And also, it's important at this point because he hasn't scored the touchdown yet, and so the enemy team will have a turn to try and take the ball away. I need to be able to defend him, so how much he moved forward was dictated by how much the rest of the team could move forward.
Oh, here we go. I remember this.
Yeah,
because I remember I could make a 1-dice split, with my guy with block, and if I managed to push him, then of course I'm next.
Yeah, it was fair enough. There wasn't much you could do. So, as I said, I think 2 videos ago, basically, it's a general point that when all you have is the desperation play, you should obviously make it.
The other thing I remember, of course...
I just realised I missed a little sort of finesse thing there. I should have moved Mad How into the square vacated by Buckzones, just in case the blitz didn't work out properly.
Yeah.
So that you couldn't then immediately run in and blitz me in turn. Because also there, I could have tried to kill the clock a bit more. Two of your guys woke up.
Yeah. I need to know which.
But because at this point, you have 2 turns left in this half. In theory, you could score in that. I happen to remember that you don't try. And I was fairly confident that I could defend it.
Yeah, well, obviously you've still got numbers advantage, because I'm...
Yeah, I think that was the real deciding factor. Like, if I hadn't had the numbers advantage, then I would have been less sure, though I probably still would have scored then, because I wasn't sure how long I could keep the ball safe when I was surrounded by your guys. Or, obviously, if I'd given you another turn, you could have formed up an even better defensive formation that wouldn't have been so easy for me to break through.
Potentially. I think I know at this point, of course, my big problem is not just the numbers advantage, because I think we're 9 against 11 at the moment.
Yes.
But one of the things that makes it worse for me is that the 2 players that are missing are Chaos Warriors. So
yeah,
that's those are 2 of my big strong players currently unavailable, including the one guy with block.
Yeah, it's certainly a very relevant point. And yeah, as I said, you don't even try to get the 2-turn touchdown here.
Evidently not. Which
no. You just go for a random completion, remember? And I think you fail it.
I may well do.
Have an extra reroll, which means you have 2 rerolls for your 2 turns, actually.
Yeah.
If you were going for that touchdown.
Yeah. I guess it was... I probably looked at your formation, figured there wasn't an easy way to get through. Then goes the extra reroll.
Whereas, yes, of course, I have 3 rerolls for 1 turn. As I'm gradually typing in chat. Yes. That was where the agility down happened. Rory has been fired since then.
Yes. One of the things I remember, of course, is that... another relevant point... And Fogler, of course, is one of the guys who woke up.
Oh, right. Failed to pick up the ball.
Yeah. And... Hang on... Yeah. Yes, because I think Gothmog is... That probably means, if I'm going for the random completion, Gothmog is probably about 1 point short of level up.
I'm pretty sure he was. I think he may have had, 2 players who were...
I think it's possible that both Gothmog and Ulfang are, which is why they're the ones at the back, because...
because you were going to throw a completion with one to the other, and then back the next again the following turn.
And, oh dear,
Chiramba is the first to die again.
Yeah. Yes. The other point as well shows an interesting little coincidence that, of course, Anforglir and Jarambar were the 2 guys who were knocked out. One of them has just earned himself his 2nd casualty, the other has just died. So, well, you can at least say that it's sort of even.
Yes.
Oh yes, I remember this. And you're trying to get the ball just to kind of...
No, I want to throw a random completion.
Yes. Yes, because you actually managed to get it.
Yeah.
I'm trying to remember what happens next. And yes!
Yeah.
I now don't need a random completion of Gothmog because he just intercepted. Which I think I think that must be about the third interception on my team.
Yeah.
And possibly in the league,
Like-
actually. Because I know I've...
Like, Chaos can build players to be very good at intercepting, because there are mutations which improve your dice rolling on it. But you don't have any of those skills.
No, I just
You just
got
rolled
very
sixes.
lucky. Oh, I remember. And then I've just handed
Oh, yeah,
off
yes,
to
hand it off to
Orphan.
him so that he can throw the completion.
Yeah, because I still want to try and do this. And it doesn't work.
Yeah.
I was actually looking at the odds of a random completion the other day, and they aren't... You know, even if you can throw one to somebody who's a bit better at catching, the odds aren't necessarily great.
Yeah. Right, yeah, so you're 3 players down at this point, so you only have 8. I have suffered 1 casualty, but I have reserves. Well, actually, no, I may not have reserves for this match.
Yeah, because...
I think I was having... I was having some roster shortages. So, yeah, yes, that's right. I remember I was still feeling fairly confident at this point because, you know, I'm now kicking butt. It's 10 versus 8. So, yeah, and while, like, I've seen it said that scoring with less players tends to be easier than defending with less players, and, well, in fact, that is generally true. It still, obviously, does make it more difficult, and particularly for a more bashy team like Chaos. If I were playing like a Wood Elf team and it was 10v8, then I would be very worried about them scoring.
Yeah, with Chaos,
it's more of a
like
problem. They can't just run those players straight through your lines. They have to try. They generally have to try to beat you out of the way. So yes, as I was saying, 10v8, names have vanished. I was feeling fairly confident. And a casualty.
So 9v8 then.
Yep. You know, while wrestle can be a useful skill defensively, it has hardly ever come up for me. It's rather frustrating. So, 8v8. And suddenly I'm a bit more worried.
Also, of course, Anthorglir has now just levelled himself up, which I don't think I was expecting.
Dice do tend to even things out. But, of course, by forming a tight cage, you're giving me the space to
Yeah,
kind of
that's
surround
true.
you.
With-
I mean, I can only do it so much because I have to prevent you moving forwards. If I try and do some sort of pincer movement, then it'll mean what's directly in front of you will be hardly anything and you can just walk forwards.
Yeah.
But
Yeah, with hindsight, it might have been better to sort of cover kind of more of the pitch.
Yeah.
Maybe worry less about the back of the cage at this point, because, I mean, obviously with a team like L...
it would take me, like... It would take my guys, like, all of their movement to get to the back of the cage.
Yeah, which would then,
Pretty
of
much,
course, be
including
harder.
going for it.
Which would be harder if I actually had players sort of more on the flanks. So.
Whereas here, you know, I've still, you know, maintained a reasonable presence in front of you, and while I'm not like totally trying to close up pincers, I've sent Sir Conrad in to do what he does better than anyone else on my team, because no one else on my team has skills except for Stephen North. No one else except Stephen North has block and Sir Mervyn. Amongst my weaponry are such diverse elements as surprise, fear, ruthless efficiency, and the block skill.
Yes.
I think I probably should have sort of closed up my ranks a bit more. Had my guys in 2s rather than 1s, because they'd be less vulnerable like that. Like, I mean, if you'd knocked Richard Dauntless over, then that would just be a line that you could run your guys straight through.
Yeah.
Which is, of course, the problem with, as I was saying, is sort of, if I tried to sort of pincer you.
Yeah, I think that's
it's exactly that issue.
I think that has actually happened to me sometimes. I've kind of put too many players around the sides of a cage and then wound up, getting up with the enemy team just taking out the guy in eyes at the front. And
the issue is like having wands is really an issue, whereas it's like if you have 4 guys with just 1 square between each of them, then if one of them gets knocked over, then that's a line that the enemy team can just run straight through. Whereas if you put them in 2 2s with 2 squares between the pairs, then if they get rid of 1, then there is a line. But I suppose, but it's more difficult because there's that assist there. And like the difference is, if they try to get through without knocking anyone over, then if you have the 4 wands, then they'd have to be dodging through 2 tackle zones in each case, whereas with the 2 pairs, they'd only be dodging through 1 tackle zone in each case. But suddenly against Chaos, that's enough of a deterrent that they'll go for the hitting, and so that's what you want to make more difficult.
Yeah, it's one of the things, of course. Chaos still have average agility, so you can dodge Chaos players.
Yeah,
but you tend to do so, more when you need to, rather than if there is an alternative option, then
I mean, putting players in 1s obviously is still better than nothing.
Yeah,
by a long stretch. But I mean, I'm kind of falling victim to exactly what I was saying about pincering and leaving the main defences weak.
Yeah,
it's something that I know I've had issues with in the past, less so more recently, I would say. Because I've had experiences like what happens in a couple of turns' time. Yes. 2 dice opponent's choice blocks can work pretty well if you have block or wrestle and they don't. I mean, obviously I would prefer to knock him over, but it means that he can't. He can only move 2 squares once he stands up, which there and obviously restricts how much the team in general can advance. And however, this is kind of what I was talking about. Even with just a push, the line is opened up. Gideon Crawl could have been like 1 square. He could have been on that square that I was just pointing at.
Oh,
and that would have solved my problems. You had just as good chances of making the dodge as you did of
making the handoff, and I think I was probably. If I know the way, I know the way I think, and I'm pretty sure what we were saying earlier. Ulfang, probably is 1 point away from a level up, which means that I want him to score the touchdown.
Yeah. As I recall, also, on the last turn, I possibly could have done some sort of hypnotic gaze thing, but it would have been to get at the ball carrier, but it would have been not so reliable. However, now this is the point where things have gone wrong, and I need to sort it out immediately. I still could have done this better, because Sir Jasper could instead have run round to where Gideon Crawl is to hypnotise Glarung, thus allowing me to run Sir Conrad in to one square left of where he is and push Ulfang to the right, so the ball would have been going more towards my team. Obviously, the most important thing was that I knocked the ball loose, and ideally I want to put some tackle zones on it.
Which is why you're following up this block.
Yes, and also why I didn't push him into the ball, because it could have scattered anywhere.
Yeah.
But yeah, basically that one little mistake of positioning with Gideon Crawl, and thus allowing there to be this line, means that now I'm having to scramble to recover my position.
Because you still haven't actually got anybody directly in front of me, really. If that had worked, you would have done, but
yeah. And so also then the second mistake of blitzing the ball carrier from the wrong direction. If I'd blitzed him, as I described before, from the left, pushed him to the right, obviously the ball would have scattered the same, so it would have landed on Anforgler, who was there at the time, who, I mean, he might have caught it, which would have then been a potential issue, but he might well not have. He was in a tackle zone, and then it could have scattered again towards my players.
I was just using a blitz from a standing start there as well.
That's very much a chaos play, to use the advantage of horns.
Yes, and only, of course, if you don't want a blitz where you need to move.
Yeah.
Because
otherwise you could just run in and assist.
Yeah, but, or just take the one dice.
I mean,
because usually that's the difference it makes. It's usually you're trying to get, because if you use the horns bonus, you're getting 2 dice.
Yeah. Of course, it's kind of worth noting that helpful for me.
Yeah, particularly because Anforgler's just got knocked out again.
Yeah. And Melkor did not move, so he's still hypnotised.
Yeah, I remember.
It's wonderful.
I think I was going to probably do something with him later on in the turn, but I thought I had decent odds of all of that working out. Didn't.
So yeah, it's worth noting that while I was sort of scrambling to sort things out, the way that I sorted them out left you in a difficult position with a bunch of people on your cage who you really needed to deal with. So this is actually reasonably salvageable for me.
Yes.
Because now I've managed to get my guys in around where the ball is, and so I have a localized numbers advantage.
Yeah. I remember.
And this is where it goes wrong, because I rolled a 1 for Bloodlust. I tried to re-roll it, and it didn't work. And then I tried to pick up the ball, and that doesn't work. So I rolled 3 1s in a row. 1 in 216 chance of that happening, and it totally screws me over. I accidentally take screenshots because I hit the semicolon somewhere in that incoherence. Oh, right, yes, and now I'm deleting the screenshots. Yeah, of course, I mean, in retrospect, I could have not risked that. I could have just run Sir Jasper in next to the ball and bitten Gideon Crawl, and then the ball would have been in 2 tackle zones, not that easy to get to, and I could have tried to pick it up the following turn. I think re-rolling Bloodlust did work in one of my last 2 videos, and I was surprised. But in general, I don't re-roll it often, but it seems to not work more than it works. Which it really shouldn't, given it's a 1 in 6 of it failing. But anyway, yeah, also, if Sir Jasper had just stood next to the ball, then he would have been in the way of that. Well, I suppose then he would have been blitzed.
Probably,
whatever. You may have knocked over Gideon with a defender stumbles, which wouldn't have worked. All these things, and I would have had more of my turn to do other things as well.
One thing I was going to say, backtracking is slightly as well, because it ties into a conversation that I think we were having earlier at one point, is the... not earlier as in the video, but just earlier. One of the fact, of course, that Anne Forgler got knocked out on one of those previous turns, while... I would have preferred, while it's problematic for me because I'm down another player and so on, the advantage, of course, is that he has already leveled up from stuff that happens this game. So if he's unconscious, you can't kill him.
Yeah.
Unless I still get that level up.
I feel like what I'm... Oh, yeah. I decided to... Given that everything was improbable... I do think in retrospect I should have moved Stephen North left 1 more square. Because it might have been... it feels like it would have been more helpful somehow. I'm not sure why. But, yeah, given the dodge out with Richard Dauntless was unlikely to work, I figured I'd go for something more likely to work in the form of just rolling Bloodlust to stand up Sir Mervyn. And it didn't work. Which of course means he had to leave the pitch, and everything is going wrong. Yeah, so yeah, I guess it wouldn't have mattered if I'd moved him another square across. See, this whole thing is a cautionary tale of how mistakes which seem minor can make everything go wrong. Because maybe if I were getting really in depth, I could pick out other mistakes that I made, but basically, I've picked out 2 mistakes that I made, which weren't that big. And then a 1 in 216 chance, which came up. And that is why I am now totally screwed, and I have 3 players on the pitch.
Yes, I think 7 I just counted.
Yeah.
So that basically means I've lost 1 this entire drive. And you've lost, what that be? 7. Yeah.
2 of them left the pitch of their own accord. Yeah, so now I just have to go for the total desperation play.
Yeah, well, equally, of course,
and hope
Richard
that you
Dauntless.
fail. Hope that I knock the ball loose and that you fail to pick it up again.
Yeah. It's not entirely.
I didn't fail Bloodlust.
No.
So he's still on the pitch.
Yes. He's just not going to really do anything useful.
Yeah.
Although I'm realising which means I make a definite mistake at this point,
Yes.
actually. And
Yes.
one which I've made again more recently in a different game.
Yeah. Because if you just wasted a turn,
Then I was guaranteed
then
to draw.
Yeah. Whereas now I have 2 turns in which to score, and I'm better equipped to do it than you are. And I am actually going to try to do it,
Yes.
like you.
Yes. You know, I'm also... Yes. Also, we are both suffering a serious player deficiency at the moment, because...
Yeah, I have 6 to your 7. Yeah.
the other thing...
But you know, it's easier to score with less players than to defend with less
That's
players.
true. And I don't think I even think about setting up a sensible defence, which... is something of a mistake.
Yeah.
I was also going to comment as well that it's one of the things I remember from this match was, of course, Gorthar, my 1 Chaos Warrior with block, manages to get knocked out in the first half and doesn't wake up for the entire rest of the game.
Yep.
So
I don't know what's up with this connection with Internet League's servers lost, trying to reconnect.
I remember it happening. I remember worrying that it would mean that we'd have to replay the entire match.
See, I remember it happening
Dead players.
on a different match which had been really nerve-wracking, and so then I was really worried that I would have to replay the whole thing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yes. I think it's possible that at this point I'm realising that, hang on, there is... you do have a chance.
And a touchback.
Yeah. I'm realising that you are able to score in 2 turns, are going to try, and I've just ended up
I
causing
do
a touchback.
I
so...
do mess up on my attempt to get the 2-turn score,
Yes.
but
I remember that you do, although I can't remember how. It's up my head.
well, I'll point it out when I do it.
Yeah.
But yeah, not having to recover the ball and then potentially pass it.
Yeah,
was really helpful.
usually, it's one of the things with 2-turn touchdowns, of course. They are pretty much a desperation play almost any time they come up. And, they, most of the time, unless a touchback occurs, you are probably going to have to rely on that little bit of... on making a possibly difficult pass
Yeah.
at some point
Okay, so
in the sequence.
here I'm about to make my mistake. If I eventually click the movement correctly. Yeah. So... Yep, he's now in scoring range, including one going for it now. But, of course, if he gets knocked over, or just put in a position where he can't feasibly move, then that's the end of my scoring chances. Which means, like, this doesn't make sense. I need more than one scoring threat, really. And therefore, I don't need to be defending the ball. I don't need to be defending Sir Jasper. And this is what I've now realised, which is now why I'm moving him up the pitch. And if I'd realised this sooner, then I would have put... Basically, I would have put these two the other way around. So that...
Would have been
the one
harder
that
for me
actually
to...
with the ball was more screened. Or, I mean, in some ways, in retrospect, it might have been a better idea to give the ball to Sir Mervyn and to have just run him up to like 2 squares behind where he actually is, where Sir Jasper started, and be ready to pass, because obviously I could try to sort of defend him there and then just have 2 potential receivers.
Yeah.
It would have been difficult for you to get to him. On the other hand, then I would have had to make a pass. But
yeah. I'm also looking at that. I got pretty lucky knocking Sir Jasper over there, though, because, of course, he has dodge, and I don't have block. I mean, if a both down had come up, I probably would have taken it, because, better to...
Yeah, well, and of course, I mean, it's worth noting that if I had had my 2 guys the other way around, then you could have, cancelled out the assist, but then with the Horns bonus it would have been 1 dice, which would have been the defender stumbles, and I would have still been standing. Unless you could get another assist round, right on the edge of the pitch.
I think I probably could have done. I was looking at it and thinking Ulfang could have sort of run around one way, Gothmog, like, Ulfang runs around the front, Gothmog runs around the back, and I could still have gotten 2 dice.
Yeah. But now,
at this point, I've basically just tried to load tackle zones onto the ball.
Yeah.
Because I can't do anything useful with it, and the odds of me picking it up were...
and if you failed to pick it up, then you could leave it in 1 tackle zone,
or
as
indeed,
opposed to 4.
Of course, it could have bounced into Martin Morris's hands, and he could have caught it. It's technically possible.
Well, he's only in 1 tackle zone.
Yeah, which
similar principle.
Yeah, which means you still need a 5 to catch it, but this, I figured, putting lots of tackle zones on the ball, so the odds of you actually picking it up go way down.
Yeah,
that's so. And then, of course, you've got to try to make the handoff to somebody who is also still in a tackle zone, so you need a 4 there. And which fails, and then you would still have needed to dodge. I mean, I wasn't... I would have done...
It was probably your best option.
Yeah, under the circumstances, yes. I think
I'd have to look at it in more detail and actually pause the video or something to be sure that there wasn't anything else you could possibly do. But
well, it's possible, of course, that I was intending to eventually run a play around in front of Martin Morris if I could have done, because I was making all those dodges to get players out. But I don't know. I can't actually remember what exactly I was planning on there.
But regardless, the principle of what you did was basically right. I might be able to debate the details, but
I remember one of the main points of it was I know I was going to try and actually run. I think what was I saying? Yeah, one of the main points of it, I think, was I would have done better to just score slower.
Yes.
And make
sure then this whole situation would not have arisen in the first place. So it was a good game.